up, guys? Today I'm continuing my series on teaching Global War 1936 to my friends who have previously played a lot of Axis and Allies Global 1940. So I'm not going over the basics here today. I'm just going over the differences between Global 40 and Global War 1936. Today we are going to be talking about victory points and how you win the game. Alright, let's go. The way the game works is that you are going to be taking turns as major powers, much the same as you do in Axis and Allies Global 40, except this game is on a turn limit, so there is no final victory condition. Throughout the game, you earn victory points, and once the game ends in July of 1945, all three teams count up their victory points, and then a victor is declared based on that information. Each turn corresponds to 6 months of real time. So you start in July of 1936 and then move on to January of 37, July of 37, January of 38, and so on, all the way up until July of 1945 when the game ends. So when starting in July of 1936, you will have 18 turns to achieve your goals. And if starting in July of 1939, you will have 12 turns to achieve your goals and win the Second World War. All right, let's move on to talk about how you score those points. Okay, so the aspect of scoring in Global War that's probably going to be the most familiar to Axis and Allies Global 40 players is going to be the victory cities. So each capital of the 10 powers in this game is worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. And you can tell which ones they are by the star. You can see there in Calcutta it's a star versus, say, Baghdad, which is just a circle, isn't worth anything. So there are going to be 10 victory cities in this game. And I found that this is a good way to visualize it. You've got Nanking in China, Paris in France, DC in America, London, Calcutta, Sydney, Berlin, Tokyo, Rome, and finally Moscow. So if you're looking at this, you're saying, what the heck? Why did the Allies start the game with 6 points? Well, if you think about it, Paris is probably going to go to Germany. That's just a hunch. And then Nanking is, in my experience, probably going to switch hands at least a few times during the game and probably be contested all the way up until the very end. And so now it looks a little more even for the Allies versus the Axis. The Comintern, you may think that they're getting shafted by this setup, how they only have 1 victory city, maybe 2 even available to them. You'll find that it's a little bit easier for the Comintern to score victory points via the other way, the victory objectives. For example, they just get a point for every territory they have with an IPC value outside of their own country. So you can imagine how quickly they can rack up points just from doing that. So it really is quite balanced that they've only got 1, maybe 2 victory cities here for them. Okay, let's move on to the victory objectives. Alright, moving on to victory objectives. As I'm sure you guys are all aware, every major power in World War II had a reason for going to war. For example, Germany had its Lebensraum. They wanted more room and they wanted more natural resources. The Soviets obviously got attacked, but they also wanted to spread communism. The Japanese wanted more resources so they could be self-sufficient and didn't have to depend on foreign trade. And all of these motives for the war are reflected in victory objectives for each of the 3 teams. As you can quickly math out, each of them have 18 scoreable points other than the victory cities in the game. So we're going to have 10 victory cities plus 18 points for each of the 3 teams. And this section here in the rule book is going to be good for you to do some research on your opponent's victory objectives to try to keep them from scoring their points while simultaneously scoring your own points. And then every major power on their reference sheet here is going to have their own victory objectives listed all out for you. And this is the one that I mentioned earlier, worldwide communism. The Soviets get a point for just having a land zone with an IPP value outside of home country. So you're really going to want to read through all these very well at the beginning of the game when you're hashing out your strategy. And then you're also going to want to keep track of this monster over here to try to decide how you want to keep your opponents from scoring their own victory objectives. And that is basically the gist of this game. The only objective in the game is to score more points than the other two teams that you're playing against. It's just that easy. Of course, having to keep track of victory cities and 18 different victory objectives for each team does get to be a lot at certain points in the game. And it's going to be a few games before you really feel comfortable with the way the scoring works. But at the end of the day, the complexity and the realism is the reason that we play this game. And it really, really becomes a rewarding experience when you finish your first game and you count up all the points and see who won. So my advice for your first couple of games is to read your own victory objectives before the game starts and kind of hash out a vague plan of how you want to go about getting those points. And then after a few turns of the war, maybe January or July of 1942, re-look at where you're at in regards to your own points, and then also read your opponent's victory objectives and see how you can maybe stop them from getting theirs. Take it slow. It's a long game, and it's going to be a little bit before you get it all figured out. So, don't feel bad if the first couple games you play, you lose track of a couple of objectives. That's okay. It happens to the best of us. So, keep on working at it, and most importantly, have fun. I will see you guys later.